We live in a time where exhaustion is the norm. No matter how much we rest, we wake up feeling drained. No matter how much we work, it never feels like enough. We are constantly busy, yet we feel unfulfilled. Why? According to philosopher Byung-Chul Han, modern society has trapped us in a system that disguises exploitation as self-improvement. We are no longer controlled by external forces, we are now our own oppressors. In the burnout society, Byung-Chul Han describes how we have transitioned from a disciplinary society, where authority figures imposed rules on us, to a society of self-exploitation. We no longer need bosses to push us to work harder, we do it to ourselves. We willingly take on more responsibilities, set impossible goals, and feel guilty for resting. The result? A generation suffering from chronic fatigue, anxiety, and depression. Han argues that we have internalized capitalism's demands. Instead of being forced to work, we convince ourselves that we want to be productive. The problem is that there is no limit. There is no clear distinction between work and rest, between our professional lives and our personal time. Even in our free moments, we feel the pressure to be doing something useful. And when we fail to meet these self-imposed expectations, we feel worthless. Social media has only intensified this phenomenon. Platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn promote a culture of constant achievement. We are bombarded with images of successful people who seem to be working tirelessly, achieving their goals, and living perfect lives. This illusion makes us feel like we are never doing enough, no matter how hard we try. The pressure to stay relevant, to keep up, and to be productive at all times turns life into an exhausting competition. This self-exploitation is particularly dangerous because it feels voluntary. Unlike traditional exploitation, where external forces imposed labor, we now push ourselves beyond our limits out of a false sense of freedom. We believe we are working for ourselves, but in reality, we are trapped in an invisible cage of endless productivity. And the worst part? There is no one to blame but ourselves. Burnout is not just physical exhaustion, it is a crisis of the soul. When everything is about performance, we lose the ability to simply be. Rest is not just about recharging, it is about living. But in a world that glorifies hustle and sees stillness as failure, we have forgotten how to stop. Byung-Chul Han's warning is clear: if we do not reclaim our right to rest, we will work ourselves into destruction. We live in an age where the message is everywhere: think positive. Stay productive. Keep pushing forward. At first glance, these messages seem encouraging. Who doesn't want to be positive and successful? But hidden behind these well-intentioned slogans is something far more insidious, something that's making us feel like failures even when we're doing our best. This is the tyranny of positivity, a force that's linked to toxic productivity. Toxic positivity is the idea that we must always remain upbeat, no matter what. It's the pressure to force a smile, stay optimistic, and pretend like everything is fine even when it's not. And it's everywhere. On social media, at work, in our personal lives, this overwhelming expectation to be constantly on can leave us feeling isolated and, ironically, miserable. The idea that we must always be doing and achieving can make us feel like we're not enough if we aren't working non-stop. What's worse is that toxic positivity gets wrapped up in productivity culture. We're told that if we're not constantly working or improving, we're wasting time or falling behind. Rest and relaxation become guilt-ridden activities, seen as unnecessary or even lazy. This creates a vicious cycle: the more we try to achieve, the more we feel we need to achieve, and the less time we have for ourselves. Byung-Chul Han touches on this when he explains that in the modern world, we've moved from a society governed by external rules and authority to one where we are our own taskmasters. We're constantly measuring ourselves against an idealized version of success, pushing ourselves harder and harder to meet impossible standards. We internalize this pressure and, over time, it takes its toll. But here's the problem: toxic positivity doesn't lead to fulfillment. It's a trap that tells us that happiness is always just around the corner if only we do more, achieve more, work harder. In reality, this never-ending pursuit only leaves us feeling empty and exhausted. The more we chase success and productivity, the less we feel connected to our true selves. Han warns that this obsession with productivity and positivity is eroding our sense of balance and well-being. Instead of embracing the natural ebb and flow of work and rest, we're forcing ourselves into a cycle of unrelenting pressure. We're taught to always strive for more, but in doing so, we miss out on the simple joys of life, the quiet moments, the time spent with loved ones, and the peace that comes from being present. We live in a world where freedom is often viewed as the ultimate goal. We hear it all the time: be free, live your life your way, follow your dreams. These messages promise that by choosing what we want, we can truly live the life we desire. But according to Byung-Chul Han, the reality might be very different. In his work, Han explains that modern society has created an illusion of freedom, an illusion that makes us believe we are in control of our lives. The truth, however, is that the more we chase this idea of freedom, the more trapped we become. It's easy to believe that we're free because we have choices. We can pick our careers, decide where we live, and choose how we spend our time. The internet gives us a platform to voice our opinions and share our lives with the world. On the surface, this seems like ultimate freedom. But Han argues that this freedom isn't real freedom at all. Instead, it's a kind of freedom that comes with hidden chains. The modern world encourages us to be entrepreneurs of our own lives, constantly branding ourselves and optimizing every aspect of our existence. We are told that freedom means doing whatever we want, whenever we want. But in trying to control every aspect of our lives, we end up being controlled by the very systems that promote this idea of freedom. Social media, for example, presents itself as a space of unlimited possibilities. Yet it often shapes our desires, actions, and even thoughts. We become trapped by the need to gain approval from others, measuring our worth based on likes, shares, and comments. Even in our work and personal lives, the illusion persists. We believe that by constantly pushing for success, we are choosing our destiny, but in reality, we're simply following a set of expectations that we've internalized. We think we're in control, but the pressure to succeed, to be constantly productive, and to meet societal standards is what ultimately dictates our actions. What's worse is that this illusion of freedom makes us feel responsible for everything. We believe that if we fail, it's solely on us, that we simply didn't try hard enough. This self-imposed pressure adds to our exhaustion. Instead of freeing ourselves, we end up trapped in a cycle of chasing after more, always believing that the next step will bring us true freedom. Han warns that in a society obsessed with freedom, we've become prisoners of our own desires and expectations. The more we chase after the illusion of control, the less free we actually are. We become slaves to the very systems that promised us liberation, whether it's the constant demands of work, the pressure to perform, or the endless comparisons we make online. So, what can we do to break free? Han suggests that real freedom comes not from constantly striving and optimizing, but from learning to let go. It's about accepting that not everything is within our control and embracing the natural flow of life. True freedom, he says, is found in surrender to the present moment, surrender to our limitations, and surrender to the fact that we don't have to control everything to be happy. In a world where we're told to always push harder, achieve more, and be better, it's easy to get caught in a never-ending cycle of exhaustion, self-doubt, and burnout. The illusion of freedom, the tyranny of positivity, and the pressure to constantly perform have trapped us in a reality where we mistake productivity and constant striving for true fulfillment. But the question is, how do we break free? Byung-Chul Han's message is both a warning and an invitation. We become so caught up in the idea of being in control, of always working towards something better, that we've forgotten what it means to simply be. We've allowed the systems around us to dictate our every move, from our work ethic to our personal worth, trapping ourselves in a cycle of anxiety and exhaustion. But what if true freedom doesn't lie in more success, more achievement, more productivity, but in less? Less striving, less comparison, less constant self-optimization? To escape this cycle, we need to challenge the narratives that have been fed to us. True freedom is not about doing more, but about being okay with less. It's about reclaiming our time, embracing moments of rest, and reconnecting with ourselves beyond our accomplishments. It's about accepting that failure is not a death sentence, but a part of the human experience. We start by letting go of the illusion that more is always better. We embrace the idea that slowing down, taking breaks, and focusing on what truly matters, our relationships, our well-being, our peace of mind, are just as valuable as the work we produce. We stop measuring our worth by how much we can achieve and instead find value in simply existing. Breaking free from this cycle won't be easy. The systems that have shaped us are powerful. But the first step is awareness. When we recognize the chains that bind us, whether they are self-imposed or societal, we can begin to loosen them. True freedom comes not from doing more, but from being present with what is, embracing the ebb and flow of life, and letting go of the need to constantly perform. The cycle may never fully disappear, but with every small choice to slow down, to rest, and to focus on what matters, we take a step toward real freedom. And in that freedom, we'll discover a life far more fulfilling than any achievement ever could be.